welcome to Fascinating Frontiers, episode 98. It's June 11th, 2026. Here's your space and science briefing. Webb has now reached the era when the universe's very first stars and galaxies formed. After 4 years of operations, the James Webb Space Telescope has extended observations to the period when the earliest stars and galaxies formed. UCL astronomer Richard Ellis and collaborators are using the data to trace the initial buildup of cosmic structure. The telescope's infrared sensitivity allows it to detect light from objects more than 13 billion years old. Follow-up programs are now prioritizing the faintest, most distant sources. Webb's observations of Glimpse 17775 show a black hole still embedded in a dense gas cocoon 1.8 billion years after the Big Bang. The surrounding material absorbs most X-rays, explaining why these little red dots appear faint at high energies. Typical growing black holes lack such thick cocoons and therefore shine brightly across multiple wavelengths. The finding adds one more data point to the puzzle of how supermassive black holes assembled so quickly in the early universe. Next, astronomers will search for similar objects to test whether dense cocoons were common at that epoch. On a completely different note, Italian fashion house Prada is now working directly with NASA on the next generation of lunar spacesuits. The collaboration targets improved mobility and thermal protection for extended surface operations. Engineers are integrating advanced materials that must withstand extreme temperature swings on the moon. The suit will support crewed landings planned after the initial Artemis 3 mission. Europe is now outlining its own independent lunar surface activities after that first landing. European Space Agency officials are planning distinct contributions to exploration infrastructure once Artemis 3 concludes. Discussions include science instruments and potential logistics support for sustained presence. These efforts build on existing ESA participation in the Artemis program. Next, the agency has awarded contracts for a new generation of radar satellites. Thales Alenia Space and Airbus Defence and Space received contracts to build next-generation radar satellites for the Copernicus program. The spacecraft will deliver higher-resolution imaging for environmental monitoring and disaster response. Both companies will incorporate advanced synthetic aperture radar technology. The satellites are expected to extend Europe's Earth observation capabilities through the 2030s. Shifting focus to launch vehicles, Ariane 6 is gaining upgraded solid boosters. The P160C solid motor replaces the earlier P120C and carries 14 tons more propellant. The upgrade delivers roughly 10% more performance to orbit for the same rocket configuration. Structural work occurs in Italy, nozzles in France, and igniters in Norway. The first flight with the new motors is scheduled for an upcoming Ariane 6 mission carrying Amazon satellites. On another continent, Australia is bringing a historic radio telescope back into service. The historic Molonglo Observatory has been rescued from retirement and restored for new observations. Engineers have upgraded receivers and signal processing to support modern radio astronomy projects. The telescope's large collecting area offers sensitivity for surveys of pulsars and transient events. Australian researchers expect the revived facility to contribute to international observing campaigns. If the sun were scaled to the size of a basketball sitting in downtown Toronto, the nearest star would still be another basketball roughly 7,000 kilometers away in Vancouver. Star color works the same way a heated metal bar changes hue. Hotter objects emit shorter wavelength light that our eyes register as blue or white, while cooler ones peak at longer red wavelengths. A star only 3,000 Kelvin cooler than the sun appears noticeably orange. One 10,000 Kelvin hotter looks blue-white. The exact shade also shifts as the star ages and its surface temperature changes by hundreds of degrees over millions of years. We can therefore read a star's temperature and roughly its mass and age from a single glance on a clear night. Yet the precise mapping between observed color and interior structure still contains gaps for stars caught in rapid evolutionary phases. The current population of small satellites has reached several thousand units in low Earth orbit. Most belong to large commercial constellations providing communications or imaging services. Launch rates continue to climb as costs per kilogram fall. Operators are now studying how this density affects collision risk and orbital debris management. Regulatory bodies are tracking the growth to update guidelines on orbital slots and end-of-life disposal. Kioxia is presenting radiation-tolerant memory solutions at HPE Discover Las Vegas 2026. These storage systems target the demanding conditions of AI workloads, hybrid cloud, and deep space missions. Kioxia's technology must handle high radiation levels while maintaining data integrity over long durations. The announcements focus on future hardware for both commercial and government space programs. The company is also highlighting endurance testing that simulates years of exposure in harsh environments. Experiments are also testing crop growth under lunar and microgravity conditions to support long-duration missions. Researchers focus on closed-loop systems that recycle water and nutrients with minimal mass. Early trials use hardy plants that can tolerate radiation and limited light. Success would reduce reliance on resupply missions for future crews. Additional tests are exploring nutrient delivery methods that function without traditional soil or gravity-driven flow. 3 geostationary satellites were recently canceled, reducing expected premiums for insurers. SES disclosed the pullbacks after a period of heavy claims from other losses. Legacy GEO assets had long provided steady income that offset riskier segments of the market. The shortfall now pressures carriers to adjust rates or seek new business lines. Analysts are watching whether underwriters will shift focus toward low Earth orbit coverage to balance their portfolios. The British firm Open Cosmos has requested more time to deploy its planned European sovereign broadband network. Launch delays have pushed the original schedule beyond the current regulatory window. The constellation is intended to provide independent connectivity for the continent. Regulators are reviewing the extension request alongside updated deployment milestones. The revised timeline includes phased launches that prioritize coverage over key European regions first. China's largest operational rocket placed a classified payload into orbit from Wenchang. A separate commercial launch of the Zhuque 2E vehicle carried test satellites for direct-to-device communications. Both missions advanced national and commercial communications infrastructure. The dual launches occurred within hours of each other. Ground teams confirmed successful insertion into their respective target orbits shortly after liftoff. A Falcon 9 is scheduled to lift 24 Starlink satellites from Vandenberg Space Force Base at 8:05 a.m. Pacific Daylight Time. The mission will deploy the satellites into a polar orbit to expand global coverage. Liftoff occurs one day before SpaceX begins public trading on NASDAQ. The launch marks the company's continued high cadence of constellation replenishment. Recovery of the first stage boosters planned for a drone ship stationed in the Pacific. Born in 1888, Chesley Bonestell created realistic paintings of space that spanned decades. His best-known work came from the 1952 to 1954 Collier's series Man Will Conquer Space Soon, produced with Wernber von Braun. Those illustrations helped turn speculative ideas into believable engineering targets for the public. His art appeared in many magazines and books through the mid-20th century. Later retrospectives have noted how his attention to lighting and perspective influenced public expectations for actual lunar and planetary imagery. Star color directly reflects surface temperature, with blue stars hottest and red stars coolest. Observers can estimate temperature by eye once they learn the sequence from blue-white through yellow to orange-red. The article explains how atmospheric conditions and a star's evolutionary stage also influence perceived hue. Simple backyard observations can therefore reveal basic stellar properties without instruments. Seasonal changes in viewing angle can further alter the apparent tint for stars near the horizon. Before we go, keep an eye on further updates from the Copernicus radar satellite program as the new contracts move into production. That's Fascinating Frontiers for today. If you enjoyed this, a rating or review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify really helps new listeners find the show. I'm Patrick in Vancouver. Thanks for exploring with me, and I'll see you next time. And if you'd rather watch than listen, find us on YouTube at @NERA Network, links in the show notes. And before you go, this show is part of the NERA Network, a family of daily podcasts covering tech, science, markets, and more. If you enjoyed today's episode, give Models and Agents a listen, your daily briefing on AI models and agents. You can explore the whole lineup at neuronetwork.com. This episode used AI voice synthesis of my voice. Editorial selection and analysis are my own.